And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link there for anybody that wants to share some love. Always appreciated. And of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And I'm telling you what, folks.
We have the footage.
Yes, folks. Like I said.
We have the footage.
So we're coming at you again tonight with some more insanity, but this time it's from the top. We're talking about not just regular public officials, but at the international level, the president, things like that. So we're going to go over some more of these short clips first, and then I've got some predictive policing videos, a series of 3 videos that follow up on events of predictive policing. And then we have our civil rights lawyer out of West Virginia, I believe. We're going to go over a case that he reviewed a couple years ago, and Department of Justice stepped in, and after 2 years of investigation, we're going to find out what happened. So let's get into it. This first video I have, pull it up here. I became an American last year, and this goes to the immigration and this and that, and how the law is for thee and not for me. Oops, what happened there?
And then ask your intelligence will say, now, you're their responsibility. I'm sure FBI gonna protect you.
Sure.
So when they reached out to me to come give a speech, I was excited. I was finally they're gonna protect me. And then 2 days before my speech, the head of diversity calls me.
The head of diversity?
Yeah.
At the FBI?
Yeah.
The head of diversity. Remember, we've been talking about this diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is what I'm talking about. It's for thee and not for me attitude.
And then
Great.
she says, like, we have to censor your speech.
Yeah.
And why?
You're not diverse enough?
And then she's like, yeah, because of your political opinions. And this is so funny. And then in my American interview, citizenship interview, my interviewer asking me this exact question. Have you ever persecuted anybody for their political opinion? You know, if you said yes, you cannot become American.
But you can.
If you say yes, you've limited somebody else's political opinion. You cannot become an American according to the immigration citizenship requirements. Yet because they're not immigrants, they get to do so? Is that the premise?
You can become FBI.
Exactly. These people should be stripped their American citizen right now.
Absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And I'm going to play this one more time, right from the start all the way through the finish.
I became American last year. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then ask your intelligence will say, now, you're their responsibility. I'm sure FBI gonna protect you.
Sure.
So when they reached out to me to come give a speech, I was excited. I was finally they're gonna protect me. And then 2 days before my speech, the head of diversity calls me.
The head of diversity?
Yeah.
At the FBI?
Yeah. And then
Great.
she says, like, we have to censor your speech.
Yeah.
And why?
You're not diverse enough?
And then she's like, yeah, because of your political opinions. And this is so funny. And then in my American interview, citizenship interview, my interviewer asking me this exact question. Have you ever persecuted anybody for their political opinion? You know, if you said yes, you cannot become American.
But you can become FBI.
Exactly. These people should be stripped their American citizen right now.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And of course, folks, that's just my opinion. The next one we've got is good old President Joe Biden, you know, and how the law is for thee and not for me. And that's why we have this title tonight, The Law is Sus and It Is Not for Us. The law is sus and it is not for us. Listen to what happens when a president is on his way out and decides he needs some friends when he's out there. And the kind of friends he needs are friends that he's already got, and that's why he's pardoning them.
Yesterday, President Biden issued a list of people who were,
The commutations.
commutations. Thank you. And
Yeah.
so one of the judges involved in the
Yeah. Look, governors and presidents have unique power to grant pardons and clemency and commute sentences. It is an absolute power, and it is a power that should be used incredibly carefully. I study.
In case you missed it, this is in relation to the judge that had his sentence commuted, and he was sentenced to like 17 years. And I agree, he should have served the full 17 years for the Cash for Kids program that he was sitting on the bench passing these children through these courts for money. That's Deuteronomy 24:7. Anybody caught stealing the children of Israel, of the brethren of Israel, and making merchandise of them shall be put to death. That's what the scripture says. They call it kidnapping. By any means, just because he didn't use a white van, pull up beside him and snatch him off the side of the road doesn't mean it ain't kidnapping. Again, just my opinion, folks. No matter how harsh it might seem.
Every single case that comes across my desk where there's a request for a pardon or clemency or reduction of sentence. And I take it very seriously. I weigh the merits of the case. I weigh what occurred in the court proceedings. I think about public safety and victims, and all of those issues factor into my decision. I recognize that those on the outside can question those decisions. As you are here today and posing a question to me as to the clemency granted by President Biden. So I'll offer these thoughts as an outsider, not privy to all the information he looked at. But I do feel strongly that President Biden got it absolutely wrong and created a lot of pain here in northeastern Pennsylvania. This was not only a black eye on the community, the Kids for Cash scandal, but it also affected families in really deep and profound and
In other words, he's saying he got it. Joe Biden got it wrong when he commuted that man's sentence. And understand, he's going to tell you some more information here about COVID and how the guy was never actually in prison.
sad ways. Some children took their lives because of this. Families were torn apart. There was all kind of mental health issues and anguish that came as a result of these corrupt judges deciding they wanted to make a buck off a kid's back. Frankly, I thought the sentence that the judge got was too light. And the fact that he's been allowed out over the last years because of COVID, was on house arrest, and now has been granted clemency, I think is absolutely wrong. He should have been in prison for at least the 17 years that he was sentenced to by a jury of his peers.
And I absolutely agree in both sentiments that not only should he have at least served the 17 sentence he did get, but that he should have gotten a harsher sentence. Like I said, that King James Version of the scripture, Deuteronomy 24:7. Read it, folks. These people are not supposed to be taking your children against your objection. And that's because you are the biological parents, moms and dads, biological moms and dads. They cannot deny that. They even write their laws to assure that. And yet people miscomprehend them and think that the state has some kind of authority when they absolutely do not. Again, in my strongest opinion, you find me somewhere where the state says that they actually do have authority over yourself, then show me.
He deserves to be behind bars, not walking as a free man. Anything else? Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody. Sickening. Sickening. Watch this one. This one's exciting.
There's a big White House announcement today. President Biden has decided to commute the sentences of almost 1,500 offenders and pardon 39 others.
It is the
Commuted the sentences of 1,500 and 39 others were exonerated? Come on. Listen to what he says. That's the biggest in history.
largest single-day clemency action ever. One of those impacted is Rita Crunwell. You'll remember this story. She's the former Dixon comptroller who pled guilty to embezzling more than $50 million from Dixon. Our
Senior official, a comptroller, gets sentenced commuted for a $50 million heist. And the guy that makes a Nazi salute like such in Australia gets arrested and can't get a bond. This is pathetic, folks. This is what you do when you bow down and subject yourself to that voter registration bullshit. They know it and you don't.
political reporter Marianne Ahern joining us now with the latest. Marianne.
That law is sus and not for us in their eyes.
Allison and Stefan, there is strong reaction on this. Rita Crunwell carried out the largest municipal.
Greetings, 5 Speed. How you doing tonight, Russ?
Good, brother. How are you?
Good, good. Been a few. Glad to be on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is one of your areas that you really get bugged about, because these are the government officials and stuff that are running this system that are supposed to be competent, yet they're the ones that are committing the majority of major crimes in this area. You know, we're not talking about raping, robbing, and pillaging in that sense, but the financial crimes and the manipulations and you know, all the malicious prosecutions and things like that.
Well, I think it all goes, I mean, how much more blatant is it that there's just no transparency?
Well, yeah, but see, part of it, Russ, is the transparency is there and we're watching it. People just don't want to admit that, you know, they can fill those places with better people, which would only be themselves. They keep placing their faith in another man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're fighting for, is, you know, people getting up and becoming active in the learning and the knowledge. And that's the fishers of men. When you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And in that premise, the true benefit is the knowledge. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So it's not the actual fishing itself, but the knowledge of how to do it and be prosperous so that you can fulfill others as well. And that's the teaching part, not just the fish.
Right, right. See, I was looking a little into the probation and parole, and one thing that I noticed with a lot of those guys, they have AS at the end of their names. So I called into the Department of Corrections here in Kentucky and spoke with one of them up in the training deal at Central Office, they call it. And I said, you know, one of the employees told me that it stands for assistant supervisor. And I said, well, is there a possibility that it would stand for an associate of science? Because in that associate of science, it's a 4-year degree with 2 years being specifically on scientific and technological disciplines.
That would be interesting.
But yes, it would, because they're also pulling from the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and funding this It's thick.
Yep.
What's been this is
Oh yeah.
the biggest human trafficking deal in the. It's unbelievable, buddy.
Oh, I'm sure. And it's if we look at it in the aspect even of assistant supervisor, we have to look at those terms and understand supervisor. That's somebody that has a greater view. Do you really have a greater view than me on my own motherfucking life? Again, fuck you. You ain't my daddy. I don't care what kind of government you've got structured. I'm
Well,
not
you and I
subject
know
to
that
no
though, but I
man.
mean, like me, I'm doing this to try to help somebody out. But if the people aren't willing to look for themselves, I mean, what are we doing? Jeez.
Yeah, a lot
I
of
mean,
people don't
it's hard
start.
for me to sit and know that all of it's going on with what I know. That's why I try to get involved so much. It's
Yeah,
hard for
well,
me to sit back and not say nothing.
yeah. And see, a lot of people would rather sit around with the blinders on of comfort and convenience. And that's that little thing I spout about the people sitting in front of the boob tube watching somebody else's fantastic life while they're munching down on the poisonous processed foods and drinks. Then all of a sudden they see the lights and hear the sirens, so they peek their head out. Oh, hell, lo and behold, somebody's getting arrested down the street a couple blocks. What do? They go right back to the couch. The next night, same thing happens. They're looking down the other end of the street. The next night, something happens. Same thing. They go back to their couch. And this time it's somebody across the street. Next time it's their neighbor. When do you think they're coming for you? You ain't special.
Well, yeah, well, that's, everything you said is true. I mean, it's only a matter of time. But
Yep.
I am one of them guys that I do think things are shifting. It just ain't shifting as quick as I'd like to see. But, that's due to just people don't are getting involved.
Yep. Hold on a second here. Dang it.
But when I called the DOC, I ended up talking to the main training deal, and I said, "Well, who's training these people? If these certain individuals have associate of science, are they trained to manipulate the paperwork to create these false securities to pull from the Rehabilitation Act to fund all of this? What seems to be human trafficking?" Boy, they didn't like that question.
I'm
They
sure
didn't
enough.
like that question
I'm
in
sure
reason
enough.
and logic and consciousness now. They don't like that type of questioning.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, let's get back to it here.
Fraud in U.S. history. She was originally sentenced to more than 19. She was originally sentenced to more than Cromwell carried out the largest municipal fraud in U.S. history. She was originally sentenced to more than 19 years in prison. She was released, though, after serving just 8.5 years because during the pandemic, those at high risk of COVID were let out early to serve home confinement. When Rita Crumwell.
So again, another situation where somebody special got home confinement during COVID. And fuck you if you don't like me saying that. I don't care what your fucking opinion is. The facts are the facts. Okay? I'm just reiterating what was just stated. And it's two cases where somebody was special and got removed from confinement or didn't have to do actual imprisoned confinement because of COVID and got house arrest. Pathetic. And then commuted the sentence.
Cromwell left the courthouse more than a dozen years ago after pleading guilty to embezzling nearly $54 million from the city of Dixon. Residents were understandably upset.
She had a ball on our money.
Cromwell set up a secret bank account to fund her lavish lifestyle of breeding and showing quarter horses. Later, her assets from jewelry to 5 properties and 400 of those horses were sold with the funds going back to Dixon. Kelly Richmond Pope has written a book and documentary on the embezzlement. She's stunned by Cromwell's commutation.
It's shocking. I mean, it is quite shocking. I would imagine that if I robbed a bank, I'd be in jail a little bit longer than 8 years.
Well,
do I need to say anything else? I mean, for crying out loud, we have people that are caught with possession serving ridiculous sentences. The law is sus and not for us. It applies to thee and not me. So hopefully one of these days people will wake up.
Crunwell was stealing millions a year. Dixon laid off employees, faced budget cuts, even failed to repair city streets. Not until Crunwell was on an extended vacation was the scheme uncovered, resulting in those federal charges. Lee Ariano is the former mayor of Dixon.
This wasn't a victimless crime. She did a lot of damage.
The emotional impact, that's long lasting, because how are you?
Yeah, you got $54 million worth of damage automatically. And then you've got the extensive damage that it costs from pulling those same sources or resources from other pockets for that same 54 million. And then you have any losses in the sale of the property that she bought with that 54 million that was supposedly recouped. Yeah, there's still, you know, a lot of loss there. And that's not even including the emotional loss from the various different things that it would have caused, such as family breakdowns.
I think the biggest, if I may, I think the biggest loss here was to even think that you were capable of getting by with such behaviors is very disgusting to begin with. And we really need to think about this whole voting bullshit and everything else and who has some of these authorities.
Yeah, and that's why I urge people to look up the authorities. You got so many people out there doing things that really aren't kosher, particularly in like the First Amendment audit groups and stuff. If you're not knowing the authorities and you're going onto a postal site and you don't know the postal authority, and they call the police, and a local officer comes onto that premise with a weapon, then somebody's seriously missing something. And I would urge that you be the one to consider that you're the one missing it. You call a police officer on a federal property with a weapon? I want to see the interlocal agreement that says you can do so in an incident like this, where there is no injury, no crime, no nothing, just somebody's hurt feelers. There's a distinct difference.
See,
And
go ahead.
I urge people to start taking it upon their own due course of learning this stuff. That is the most imperative thing. Like I said earlier, the true benefit is the knowledge. If you don't know, you're going to sit back to that fallacy of comfort and convenience that somebody else does know. They know better. They have a supervision, supervisor, and they just know better. That's fallacy. Go ahead, brother.
I've just come to learn that there's nobody that has any greater authority than I except Jesus the Christ himself. And without embossing any paper, you can take a hike.
Yep, I agree.
You trusting of elected officials? How are you trusting of your neighbors? I mean, those types of implications last for a lifetime.
Thank you. One who has applied for a presidential pardon and is still waiting to hear, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., says he will, quote, continue to fight for the full, absolute, complete, and unconditional pardon, noting he wants the same legal forgiveness that President Biden's son, Hunter, received.
So amongst those, again, remember that this is the largest situation like this in one day in the history of any president. And though there's a large number of them, like we see here, there are some that are affable. They're very applicable. They should be exonerated. So let's take a look at the next one, because I've got a scene from A Million Ways to Die in the West, and I just had to play it for everybody.
Oh, you want to see more death? All we got to do is get up and walk out the front door. That is our mayor. He is dead. He has been lying there dead for 3 days. No one has done a thing. Not moved him, not looked into his death, not even replaced him with a temporary appointee. For the last 3 days, the highest ranking official in our town has been a dead guy. Oh, look at that. Look at that! Wolves are dragging the body away as if to illustrate my point. Bye! Bye, Mr. Mayor! Bye! Have fun becoming wolf! Bye! God!
You know, everything has to die, as they say, quote, die. But the point of life is living in itself. What is it we're doing, Russ, if we're standing around saying, I'm just doing my job? My supervisor told me what to do.
Well, what I got out of that video there, I would assume that mayor died a long time ago.
Well, exactly. That was the point, you know, and I was referencing Hitler's willing executioners. Does anybody really give a shit whether Hitler died? I mean, are they hurt by it? There might be some sentiments by some people long lasting, I don't know. But for the general consensus, people just don't give a shit about whether Hitler died. He could have laid there in that fucking pile of rubble for days. Nobody would have given a rat's ass.
You know what, man? There was a shootout in, I think it was in the late 70s in my little hometown. And I was a kid, obviously, and that old boy that got it pretty bad and got hit and knocked over the hill there. They were going to leave him, and he says this. I don't remember this, but I drank a lot of wine with this old feller many years later, and he said that I'm the one that told him that he was laying over the hill. They didn't even know he was over the hill, and that I saved his life. But you know, it's crazy. I've seen some crazy shit in my times.
Yeah, well, like John says down here, real quick. Greetings, King Stephen. How you doing tonight, brother?
Hello. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Just going over some more of the insanity as we see it at the top. So, join in anytime.
Well, don't you think that the ones at the top of the world, though, are like the kings and the royals and just the successful people should get special treatment than the ones at the bottom? Do you think that the peasants at the bottom should have to have a certain respect for the ones that have actually succeeded?
Well, think about it this way. You know, and think about it in your own perspective, brother. Because when I think about the Queen dying here recently, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if she died and laid there in the street until the wolves come picked her up, or she had these big, huge ceremony of being honored by other men. I don't give a rat's ass.
Yeah,
you know,
but
that's
she
what I'm
wouldn't
talking about.
She didn't give a shit about the peasants during her life either. So you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to point out that the purpose here is a message. You know, we're always told it's not about the messenger, it's the message. So
I think the wealth comes from the act of the service.
Right, and that goes to this right here. I was just going to pull it up again. That's us on the floor, even while living. You know, when I talked about these people and death and stuff, most people live a decedent life. In other words, and I'll express it this way. I had a gentleman I was sitting down and having a nice discussion with about the legalities and commercialities of the system. And he had a young 6-year-old boy come over and interrupted the conversation as we were talking about decedents. And he said, most people are dead all their life. and it struck me coming from a 6-year-old that he would know something like that, because I totally agreed.
Yeah, they're walking dead. They're like zombies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of his favorite games was zombies.
That's a human game. That's playing the humans. The humans are zombies, right?
So,
but what were you saying about Hitler before I came in? I don't think he was the bad guy that they painted him. I think that maybe he was a good guy, and
right,
the media
and that's what I'm talking about. Whether he is a good guy or bad guy, the name Hitler, I don't give a rat's ass about.
But
so in reality, I want to take a deeper look In reality, that means I would want to take a deeper look at what he was doing and saying. If
Yeah.
it's not portrayed accurately, I'm not going to be able to get a good view of it and a good observation of it. Therefore, I'll never be able to interpret it and comprehend it correctly. But the more I can study it and find out, the closer I'll get to it, and at the same time, still be able to dismiss the fact I don't give a shit about your name. I want to know the truth.
Yeah. Well, the Tiny Hats declared war on Germany before that ever began. It was in the old newspapers. The banking cartel, the international Tiny Hats. And then,
Yeah,
I mean,
reserve banking as a private banking, a private central bank.
yeah, and the Germans were suffering after World War II on purpose. They tried to starve them, and a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch that goes into
That's what brought
there.
it. Yeah, that's what brought about the Trading with the Enemy Act, folks. And that's what they're fomenting today as a program of economic warfare beyond the fields of war during times of peace on domestic soil against the very American people. It's the identification program.
I mean, if Hitler was alive today, I'd give him a few bucks if he needed some money.
Yeah, you never know.
Bad guy.
Well, you take with all the algorithm or all the artificial intelligence and everything, and as we were talking earlier about that associate of science and the scientific and technical disciplines. I mean, how they see everything.
Yeah, and I'll never put out that I think Hitler was doing great things, because I don't. And that's why I talk about Hitler's willing executioners and how relevant it is to American society when I hear all these public officials saying, I'm just doing my job. You have to talk to my supervisor. No, you'll have to get right with the Lord. I'm going to keep being me. You keep being you. See how it works for you.
Well, when we look at that education system, at least since from the 80s, I'd say mostly what's been taught is artificial intelligence.
Well, yeah, I told you that's one of the things that I did in high school was computer programming. I was the one that was computer programming before it was introduced into the school, because both my parents were federal employees, and we had the first of everything in any market. We were the test subjects. We got to test out those markets as federal employees. It was awesome. I was up there teaching. That was 1983, 84. They started it in the education program here in Waterloo. People were programming and building computers right there. Went beyond that garage real quick.
Was there a Hitler program on those computers?
A what?
Was there a Hitler program on those computers?
No. It was all ingenuity and innovation at that time. In its beginnings, it was binary, ones and zeros, and then went to BASIC, which was just English, if then go to programming. If
I remember BASIC. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. I'm old too, so.
Yeah. So let's get on to the next one here, because I got a few of these shorts to go through before I get to the final video with our favorite private civil attorney. And this one here is Trump. See what they got to say here. Oops. I don't know why it does that, but it keeps muting my videos.
Years. That's why I went. I flew in, left at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knew I was going. I got on Air Force One and we started flying. When we reached about half an hour away from Iraq, they said, "Sir, I'm sorry, you'll have to turn off all your lights." Why? We're getting close to our site. I said, "You mean we spent $8 trillion and we can't leave the lights?" It's because it's too dangerous? Yeah, too dangerous, because they see the light up in the air. The plane was pitch black. All the lights outside, there's nothing. It was 1,900, 800. It's a computer voice. And all of a sudden, psh, and you hear, wow, wow, perfect landing like glass. And then I get out of the plane and I'm going down and I see the general. What the hell are we doing with ISIS? It's going to take years. Sir, we can do it very quickly, sir. I say, how long can you do it? We can do it in a couple of weeks, sir. He said, wait a minute, they told me 5 years. I said, why haven't you done it? Because the orders came in from Washington, sir, and they would come here and tell us what to do. Don't you challenge us? We're not allowed to do that, sir. They tell us what to do, and we have to respect them. I was told.
They tell us what we have to do, and we have to respect them.
Crazy.
That's the problem when people are so incensed that they believe they have to do something another man says, despite any kind of internal conflict of good human nature, saying, no, I really shouldn't go in there and just because of happenstance of war, kill women and children.
Couldn't they just say it's a bunch of bullshit and not follow the orders? Why would they have to follow the orders?
That's the problem. I don't see why they wouldn't. I wouldn't. If somebody's giving me an inhumane order, I'm not going to follow it. If I know
they call it
this
an
is
unlawful
commercial
order.
war,
Isn't there a thing in the military where they say that's an unlawful order?
yeah,
and not
if I
just go against it.
Yeah, and if I know this is a contract war, a commercial war, then I'm going to speak out about that demand for any kind of draft or enlistment or anything, or say that you have to sign up for selective service. That's bullshit.
So what's going on with these zombies following the orders then, killing innocent women and children?
That's what the little boy was talking about. Most people are dead their entire life. They're zombies already. They will do what another man tells them. They're bitch-ass slaves.
I mean, when you look, I don't know how people don't see it. When you look at all of the shit with the Diddy shit and all of that, and all of the stuff with the corruption, if it's all one big cesspool.
Yeah, it's all one big party, and this is what I talk about. You know, you
Wondering why they wouldn't do this or why they wouldn't do that. They either end up dead or wake up and their ass hurt, or you know.
Well, when you look through history and you find out that every successful nation failed because it turned to hedonism. Every successful nation turns to hedonism.
Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. They go to the pleasures, and rather than looking out for the children, and now we have this falling birth rate. It shows that they're not looking out for children in the first place. That's not inherently their purpose anymore. Man cannot sustain a prosperous life without a certain birth rate, and we've gone below that birth rate.
Yeah. So they're bringing in the migrants, the immigrants, to bolster the population, right? Because is that what you're saying?
As well as the inducement into the legal and commercial entities.
So do you think that America is Babylon, the new Babylon, where they're trying to? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like I said, it's a program of economic warfare fomented by the United States Trading with the Enemy Act. And when you read the Cambridge University Press article on a century of the statutes, Trading with the Enemy Act, you'll see that it tells you that the United States is in fact the New World Order. And that is their program of economic warfare. It all relates to the identification. That's subordination of perjury. I am not the person. You cannot tell me I have to admit that I am a person.
No, you don't have to admit that you're a person. Do you think that they will merge United States with China? What's the plan with all the Chinese
What do you mean?
factories?
They have contracts, current contracts with China. They had a contract with China during COVID when COVID erupted.
Yeah, but I mean beyond that, like as one nation. Do you think that's the goal to?
No. It's just a new world order.
Okay.
It's going to still have many nations. It's just going to have a certain order.
But one world
government. They had to feed the sheep
coming?
over there on the own network.
No, everybody's still going to have their elements of government, which is the ability to contract. This is what people don't understand. I don't I don't give up my unlimited powers of contract to a government so that they can contract for me and then put me as a liable party in the contract. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure that each and every word in every contract or application or anything, any such is put before me. I'm going to rightly divide it, make sure it's true and applicable. If it is not, I'm sorry, I've come across an impossibility. He is no respecter of persons. So let's get on to the next one.
Okay.
This one here. This isn't so much about the government, but what they use as the institution. Like I said earlier, Federal Reserve is a private banking system, which is what we have for the central banks now.
Okay.
God damn it.
Checks into cashier's checks. Like, the check is good, right? She goes, yeah, it's good, but we don't break up checks into cashier's checks. Like, you don't have a bank account here, but the check is good. Right. I said, so if I came in here with cash, if I asked you to buy a cashier's check, would you then give it to me? She was like, if you came in with like $2,000 and wanted a cashier's check, yeah, we would do that. I said, so what's the difference? This is a check to your bank that you're saying is good. And she was like, I'm sorry, it's just not policy. We just don't do that. I went, but if I wanted to cash this check, you would have to cash it. She went, well, I mean, it's $150,000. Right. But you still have to cash it. She went, well, we couldn't cash it. You'd have to go to a cash transaction branch. And I said, great, can you set that up? And she went, why don't you just deposit? I said, I don't want to deposit. I want cash, or I want the cashier's checks. I want one or the other. She goes, well, we can't do that here. We have to schedule it. I said, well, then schedule it. And she goes, I would have to call down there. I said, so call. And she went, are you serious? I said, yes, ma'am, I'm serious. She goes, I'll schedule it for tomorrow. You can go get cash tomorrow. I said, great, tell them I'm going to want it in nickels, dimes, and quarters. She goes, you must be joking. I said, no, ma'am. I said, and when they ask, why are we counting $150,000 in nickels, dimes, and quarters? You can tell them about your strict adherence to policy. And
you can tell them about your strict adherence to policy, because see, we do in fact, like I just mentioned, have that ultimate power of contract. And if we want to insert a clause in there to make it to our benefit, we are allowed to do so. And all we have to do is explain that it would be a detriment. So if you want me to do this, I want it in nickels, dimes, and quarters. Okay. Guess what they do? They change their mind. Okay. We'll get that out to you right now. Funny how that works, isn't it? Language is specific, folks. They have to follow the language in their policy. And their policy will tell you what they have to do. And all you have to do is have unique ways to follow it. Be innovative. Use abstract concepts. Most people aren't used to getting paid in pennies, but it is cash. So let's look at the next one. This one here is about the Border Patrol. And we were talking about that immigration. And these people are so desperate to be bitch-ass slaves for those legal and commercial entities, they will go to extremes to get into this country. This is nuts. This is absolutely correct. From Indiana Auditor. Watch what this is, one of them flared fenders on a truck, right? Not really.
Yeah, taking a video, bro. I got pictures. Fuck. Yep.
Them's people in there. Them's people in there.
God damn. Like sardines in a can.
What happens? What happens if they get in a chase? The people trying to get away don't give a fuck.
How'd they know they were in there?
Don't know, don't care. All I know, This is the extreme. This is the insanity at the top, folks. People are nuts trying to get into this country.
Yeah.
Man, it had to be hot in there.
Telling you.
Like sardines in a can, squished in there.
Shit.
Oh, wait. Got pictures.
Look at that.
Yep.
I don't know how they got in there.
They were sealed in there. That is just insane, folks. So here's one. City Hall.
Trying to arrest him over free speech. After suing the city council for trying to arrest him over free speech, this lawyer returned to remind them that he's not backing down.
I was a federal counterintelligence special agent. I focused on national security crimes. I investigated national security crimes across this country and around the world. So if you think that I don't know what I'm talking about when I come here and I talk about the things that this city is doing in violation of people's rights, you might want to pay a little bit of attention. Since we filed our lawsuit against you guys, guess what? People are coming out of the woodwork. You might want to clean your house pretty quickly. They're coming out of the woodwork against your chief, against some of you, against your city manager. I hope you're worried. You should be. All it took was one high-profile case to get people to start talking around here because you think you can violate people's rights. And did you know that he actually contacted the State Bar of Texas and tried to issue a bar complaint against me? And he lost that too? Your chief has now also filed bogus criminal charges against us, and those are going to fail as well. Do something.
Do something. A man after my own heart. And this is a guy, you know, like you said, he was up there with Secret Service. You know, he was at the top. And these are the kind of people we're looking for. He's retired. He ain't got nothing better to do, and that retirement ain't going to pay him shit, considering he can help people with lawsuits against fucking insane motherfuckers like this. And as you mentioned, he's going through a string of people trying to sue him and assert some kind of false authority. It's ridiculous. What do you guys think? I know Russ speaks like this. Do something.
Yeah. Emboss that paper. Impress me.
Yeah.
Impress me.
And this is the links we're talking about, you know, when people get set up. And it's not even people at the top that they get set up by, but it's the people at the top that enforce it. Unanimously, across the board, it's systemic. They support themselves. The law is us and not for us.
Falsely accused somebody of possessing fentanyl. After serving 3 years into an 8-year sentence, Esteban had demonstrated model inmate conduct. He was enrolled in 2 college programs, but it was during this time that his cell was searched and an officer claimed that his Folgers coffee was drugs. So the Wisconsin Department of Correction used a field drug test kit, which falsely claimed it was fentanyl. The local police collected the Folgers coffee. They tested it back at the police department using the same error-prone field drug tests, which led to Esteban's prosecution. For the next 2 years, Esteban suffered great losses. He was pulled from his college programs and he was placed into solitary confinement for 120 days. It was only after the court moved to test Esteban's coffee at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab did it reveal that he never possessed any drugs at all. All charges were dropped and his prison record expunged. That's the reality of field drug tests in our
That's the reality of not just field drug tests, but the bullshit that people have to go through because of them, not because of the drug test, but because the people behind them have this devious, mischievous attitude towards people that they just don't give a fuck. And if you think they do, you're listening to one of Hitler's willing executioners, because at the end of the day, they need a paycheck to go home and take care of their family.
They got it.
No, I think Hitler was a good guy. I think he was a good guy, but I feel sorry for that poor Negro. I think he got persecuted for.
Well, this is why I speak out. It's anybody that they do this to. They are trying to cut a man off from his ability to have knowledge. Again, that's the true benefit. And like it said, he was going through college degrees, and they interrupted that and prevented that. That's their ultimate thing, is they want to keep people stupid. That's why they went after him. He did the right thing.
See, think about
in
it.
the wrong place.
The higher the education level, the higher the degree, the hotter these people are in their heads. You know, us cooler people, you know, we're down here all chill and flipping the tables on their bullshit language.
Yep.
You think they got hot heads because of their degrees? Is that what you're
I'm
saying?
just well, I mean, I tie it into
Well,
all together as a whole. You know, I get pretty deep with things in my thinking and how all of this works from a mechanical standpoint. You see what I'm saying?
well, I think it comes from a more of a sense of a entitlement attitude, depending on various circumstances. So you can be entitled by age, you can be entitled by sex, you can be entitled by knowledge, you can be entitled by a lot of things.
I'm saying you can take the artificial intelligence and you can use it like a distributor on an automobile. You can either retard that or you can advance
Right.
that and be
Correct.
popping and cracking and doing all kinds of shit. If you want to
Correct.
turn up the heat, that's what I'm talking about.
Yep. So let's look at the next one. And this goes to that sense of entitlement, not because this woman happens to be any kind of official or anything like that, but because of her age, I think. She feels entitled. And I can't see how women or even men of this age and stature would think that they have the ability to be assaultive to other people. If you haven't learned that in your life, then you haven't learned shit. So let's take a look at it. Woman charged after attacking man in Panera Bread.
Stop. Stop.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Now I'm going to call police.
So you're going to attack and assault somebody, and when they hold you back and throw the drink back at you that you threw at them, you're going to call the police. This is the stupidity of entitlement. I don't give a fuck how old you are. I don't care whose fucking grandma you are, woman. This is the insanity of
You think that
growing up
was?
to be an age like this and not give a rat's ass.
You think it was because of her age? I think she was Jewish though, and the guy was the guy's wife or girlfriend was wearing a Palestinian shirt, I think, and
It may have been, King Stephen. It may have been,
I
but
think
again,
maybe
it goes
she
to that
was.
sense of entitlement that people,
Yeah,
no matter what you're using as your sense of entitlement, I don't give a rat's ass. You're not
and
as profoundly better than you think.
she feels like she's God's chosen ones because she's from Tel Aviv or something.
Something. I don't know.
That's
But
what
anyway,
I saw this one earlier, a couple
Well,
days ago, the other day.
I don't think there should be any exception for these types of behaviors. I mean,
No, I'm not giving her a pass for it. I just think she got triggered because she saw this guy's girlfriend wearing like a Palestinian
Come
shirt.
on, King, quit it. Come on, King, quit it.
It's true.
Let's get on to the next one. The next one is the first of a series of three. Residents sue Pasco County Sheriff over harassment and predictive policing. And this is the one where I've got a series of three. So let's watch this first one.
Hey there, these families, these individuals, they say that deputies would constantly show up to their homes time after time. They say they were harassed, fined, even arrested unfairly. This body camera video shows a visit from Pasco County deputies to Robert Jones' home.
They came every single day. After we took it to court and they lost, they got really upset. And they started coming multiple times a day.
Jones claimed his son was a target as soon as they moved to Pasco County because he had gotten in trouble in another county. The Institute for Justice is now filing a lawsuit against the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, alleging the Sheriff's Office violated several residents' constitutional rights. They claim the residents were
So what they're saying, and this is the Pasco County Sheriff using predictive policing because he was a trouble youth in another county. So now they're going to do predictive policing and do investigations regularly. Okay, that's harassment as outlined. Now, this is from, let me see here. This is from WFLA News. So this is Florida, Pasco County, Florida, News Channel 8. And this was from 3 years ago. Okay? Just so you understand a timeline here of what's going on with these 3 videos.
Harassed and even arrested because of the Pasco County Sheriff's Office intelligence-led policing policies. The lawsuit calling it predictive policing that targets people that they think will commit crimes.
There is no such thing as innocent until predicted guilty. But in Pasco County, that's exactly how to describe what's happening.
The sheriff's office says the program aims to work with people based on their criminal history to break the cycle. But Jones says deputies had his family living in fear, especially when he stopped cooperating. According to the lawsuit, he was cited for several code enforcement violations, including overgrown grass, not visible address numbers, and a jet ski too close to his home.
Overgrown, the trailers, the numbers.
Overgrown landscape and a jet ski sitting too close to the house. You see what kind of bullshit we're talking about? Does that seem reasonable to you? I mean,
No,
if I want to use the conservation easement, I will let the grass grow under the conservation easement to allow it to propagate on its own at whatever degree, whatever kind of grass. I don't care if it's 3-foot grass or 8-inch grass.
Did you say predictive?
Yes.
Well, would that fall in line with that Associate of Science and that whole scientific and technical?
Well, yeah, it's what is that?
And that's health.
Well, and that's
or education. Education. I'm sorry.
Well, it's also that movie they put out. What was it? Pre-crime.
Well, here in Canada, you can grow your own grass, weed, and smoke it. I mean, they can't even stop you from growing plants, marijuana. So I don't understand how they can stop this guy, how they can harass this guy just for his grass on his lawn. Like what's going on?
Well, yeah, it seems kind of fucking odd, doesn't it? When you think about it, think about that, folks. He made a very good point there. If I can grow what they call cannabis, THC, hemp, weed, marijuana, unrestricted, why is it that you have to keep grass a certain length?
Because I said so.
So let's keep going.
Because you can only have trailers on one side of the property.
Tammy Hillman is also part of the lawsuit. She claims her son was also a target of the sheriff's office. She says this led to constant harassment, and eventually she was arrested and charged.
They make you seem like you're some criminal. And now on paper, I am a criminal, which I'm really not.
Absolutely. It's all lies. And like I've spoken many times, if we understand what the true lies are in the beginning, things like resident, United States citizen, our claim to those kinds of things, we find we're making a false claim. We have to correct ourselves.
So it would seem that it's predictive policing, and it's not even on rights, freedoms, and principles anymore. It is on education and mental health.
Well, yeah,
I mean, because that's what they got it. They're pulling these when they're creating these securities, they're pulling it from one of these deals. Now, it was interesting because when you said something about that predictive, that touched on when I was looking up one of the coroners. He had the acronym NPR at the end of his name, and when I looked that up, there's also that also means national response plan or something. So now, because that predictive wouldn't, now are they using that as a reason to respond to everything in that manner?
No, I doubt it. I doubt it.
Well, it's all from the universities.
Well, I don't know though. You can't really say that.
Well, that's what
why,
I'm at. It
yeah,
seems that it's all from the universities.
yeah, that's why I don't get into that on these things. I really don't know. It's something that if you can find the paper trail, sure.
Yep.
Now, the sheriff's office had previously said that the folks involved that have been speaking out have significant criminal histories. They also said some of these issues were probation visits and checks or code enforcement issues and not anything to do with the program. Now, in regards to the lawsuit, the sheriff's office said they were not aware of the lawsuit being filed. They released a statement saying, in part, they look forward to defending any lawsuits in the proper venue. Live in Pasco.
They look forward. Yeah. They weren't aware. The fuck they weren't.
Yeah, they're looking forward in their predictive measures to see how we're going to make our next buck. Who's next?
Yep. So this one was 3 years ago, right? Now, this one is 9 days ago.
This is, in so many words, an admission that this program never should have been implemented, and it is a guarantee that this program will never be implemented again.
Tonight, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office has reached a settlement in its controversial intelligence-led policing program.
Yeah, for more than 3.
A settlement is what they've reached. So they did know they were being sued eventually, if not at that time. Here it is 3 years later, and we're finding the results. But pay attention to what they say at the very end.
3 years, Sheriff Chris Nacco's agency faced litigation in which critics accused it of discrimination and harassment. Investigative reporter Brittany Muller joins us now live. Brittany, that litigation ended today, correct?
Josh, it did. The ongoing legal battle ended this morning when the Pasco County Sheriff's Office reached a settlement. The plaintiff's attorneys claim the settlement is an admission of wrongdoing. The Sheriff's Office says this is strictly a financial decision that was best for the taxpayers who fund the agency's operations.
They're not just arresting innocent people, they're targeting people.
Robert Jones says he was harassed and ultimately arrested after the Pasco County Sheriff's Office predicted he would be a troublemaker in what critics call the agency's predictive policing program.
They were doing anything they could to take me to jail.
Jones is one of 4 Pasco County citizens who claimed their constitutional rights were violated. A federal lawsuit filed in 2021 against Sheriff Chris Nacco. Jones is represented by attorney Robert McNamara with the Institute for Justice.
Fundamentally, this program broke down trust in law enforcement, harassed parents because of their relationships with their children, and treated people as if they were criminals based on individuals in an office applying an algorithm.
Based on individuals in an office playing an algorithm game.
This
now,
program.
And he said that caused the loss of faith in the police and the community. And yeah, well, no, I lost faith a long time ago. I know a lot of people did. So when you say loss of faith, yeah, we're losing more and more faith. We have very, very little faith in you people anymore.
They thought would identify future criminals.
On Wednesday morning, the Sheriff's Office reached a settlement, which includes the agency agreeing not to implement a similar program in the future. A spokesperson shared this statement with 8 on Your Side. The Pasco Sheriff's Office will never apologize for keeping our community safe and holding those who victimize our community accountable for their actions.
That's not what you were accused of. Okay? You were not accused of keeping our community safe. You were accused of violating private people in the community that you victimized, and we are holding you accountable for your actions. Ridiculous how they flipped the script, folks. These people are nothing but heathens.
Accountable for their actions. It is important to note that this is the final case tied to the false reporting alleged by former members of the Sheriff's Office who were held accountable and disciplined for their actions.
What happened here today should send a message to law enforcement across the country. that in the United States, we punish people after they've been convicted of a crime. We don't punish people because we've decided they might commit a crime in the future.
Now, those 4 families will receive a total $105,000 settlement. The Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
Not anywhere near enough. Again, not anywhere near enough. You can make $105,000 in 1 year easy. These people spent a fucking 3-year period. And it's not just the family that suffered. Again, it was the community. They weren't just targeting these people. It's a whole community. And like I said earlier, when do you think they're going to come after you?
You got to wonder where the how the finances ever got into the way that it did. It's all corruption, because you know it all started. Well, I won't get into it. Continue.
Yep. Peace, Brother Eldon. And good to see you too, NPC the game. Greetings, everybody. Links down there if you guys want to join the panel. But let's get on to the third video and see what Rob Laurie, the moderator, has to say.
A lawsuit that brings to an end the department's predictive police.
This is a different channel now. The other one was WFLA Channel 8 in Florida. This is Florida This Week.
Program. The initiative used data to predict who might be likely to commit crimes. Officers would then monitor and sometimes harass those people. For a while, the sheriff's office had access to the Pasco School District's student data, such as grades and attendance, to advance this effort. This week, the sheriff's office agreed to pay $100.
So they're technically using, again, I'm going to refer to Deuteronomy 24:7. He who is caught stealing the brethren of the children, or the children of the brethren of Israel, and making merchandise of them, shall be put to death. Ye shall put evil away from amongst you. They're going after the children, folks. And if you're going to step up in the way, you are part of that target automatically. You are not special. These people are demons.
$5,000 to 4 plaintiffs who sued over the program. The plaintiffs alleged that their constitutional rights were violated after they became targets of the sheriff's prolific offender program. People on the list and their families were subjected to prolific offender checks, during which deputies looked to cite them for issues like having grass that was too high, missing house numbers, unvaccinated pets, and excessive window tint on parked cars. Did
I just hear that correctly? Missing house numbers, unvaccinated pets? When are administrative things criminal activities? Fucking pathetic. Excuse my language. Don't like it, you can fucking leave.
Agency's program was the subject of a 2020 Tampa Bay Times investigation, which won the Pulitzer Prize for its reporting. A Pasco Sheriff's Office spokesperson said in a statement this week that the settlement was strictly a financial decision because costs for trial could have reached millions of dollars.
And that's what I'd have done. You're not going to pay full up with full transparency. And I mean full transparency, where you're speaking directly to the people and with a cognizable and decent apology and the proven record and efforts to go forth and make sure it don't happen no more. But the problem is, folks, you're the only one that can and will do that. History shows that you'll wait till the last minute, though.
Paid for by taxpayers.
And Eric, let's start there. Do you think it was a financial decision to save taxpayers' money?
Well, who knows?
It was a financial decision to save taxpayer money. It had nothing to do with transparency and stepping up to the responsibility of their obligation, admitting they were wrong and doing something about it. Had nothing substantive at all. Saving taxpayer money, again, is administrative, not substantive. Has nothing to do in reality. It's like California legislator, oh, let's talk about plastic straws. Well, we're not going to use them no more. Okay, great. Now we're going to use paper straws and plastic wraps instead of the plastic straws and paper wraps, without even addressing the real issue, what to do about plastics in general. Fucking pathetic.
You know, one suspects that they thought that they were probably going to lose anyway. But here is another example of the effectiveness of traditional reporting. They spent a lot of time looking through documents and body cam video and all kinds of things to really figure out what exactly police were doing in order to do this predictive policing.
Historical in the house.
Obvious. And then once they revealed it, it still took 4 years to get to this resolution. So, you know, kudos to the Tampa Bay Times and the reporters there for unearthing this. And you know, shame on the police department for taking so long to own up to something that's obviously crossing a line. And you know, even within the stories, people were quoted as saying,
they never even owned up to anything. Let me correct that. They never even owned up to anything. So no, not kudos to the police. Again, they did it strictly to save taxpayer monies, nothing else. They didn't own up to nothing. In fact, they still admitted that they did nothing wrong. The internal police investigation said that we find that they did nothing wrong. Yet the Department of Justice found that they did. How does
they
that work?
investigated themselves. They investigated themselves. So
exactly.
Saying, you know, the goal was to harass people to the point where they either moved or sued the police department, which seems to be a terrible policy.
Mitch, I was looking at the Pasco County crime records this week, and most of Pasco County is pretty much low crime. I mean, there are a few pockets of high crime, but it's not endemic throughout the whole county.
Yeah, they did resist this. They kind of had a defiant statement about this, but this was like that movie Minority Report. Remember that, the Steven Spielberg?
There you go. That's it. Minority Report. And so what they're doing is they're replaying that. They're instituting that very movie of pre-crime by using minority reports. They're going to the schools and getting the report cards and stuff of those children.
You can't make this shit up, man.
Movie from like 20 years ago, and it was really insidious, and I'm glad it was exposed. And you know, I came across a tweet last night that Matt Gaetz put out when this trial began, and he basically said that Ron DeSantis should think about firing the chief of police or the sheriff there in Pasco County. I don't think he's going to do that, but I mean, this actually united folks on the left and right and thinking this is pretty outrageous what was going on there.
Yeah, and it was the Institute for Justice, which is kind of a libertarian version of the ACLU that brought the lawsuit against Pasco County.
Absolutely, yeah.
Janelle, what do you think of this?
You know, Pasco County is ruby red, and the sheriff there is, you know, maybe not quite as beloved as in Polk County, but it's our Pasco. I always get the P's confused. So you've seen outrage publicly, but I think within the community, the sheriff still has a lot of support. There's a lot of community efforts going on with feeding people during the holidays and things like that, and then other events throughout the year.
Oh yeah, supporting the police in those kind of events. Yeah, of course. What about their patrol and their actual duties when they're making up crimes because they don't have enough to investigate already? So when we find those pockets throughout Pasco County showing that it's not endemic, it is endemic in the people that are carrying it out. They're likely the same people doing the same predictive programming or policing and targeting certain minors and minorities. That's the endemic part.
You think they're targeting the Negroes and the Orientals?
Absolutely. They're targeting anybody that they don't like. It's a feelers thing. It's that diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if they don't want you included, by goddamn, their diversity is going to show up.
Huh.
So let's take a look at our favorite attorney, civil rights lawyer down there in West Virginia, I believe, again.
Fire right now.
Oh, this guy. Yeah, I watched this channel. Bearded guy? Or, yeah.
Well, he wears a beard every now and then, but he smokes a cigar, plays banjo. And this guy here did this video a few years back, a couple years ago. And it's the same situation. Now the Department of Justice stepped in after they saw the video and did their own investigation. And after 2 years, they're coming down with the results. So let's take a peek.
We're all set here. You can go inside. Remember the video I did where the church pastor called a cop a tyrant and got chased, tased, and arrested inside his church? You're not gonna tell me what to do. You go inside. You're going to get arrested. Let's get it. I didn't know it at the time, but the right people apparently saw that video. Just a few days after I uploaded that video to YouTube, the DOJ opened an investigation into that department.
The Department of Justice revealed its findings of a 2-year investigation into Worcester Police.
And guess what incident got almost a full-page color photo in the DOJ report?
In this photo, they say an officer tased a 55-year-old man inside of a church in retaliation for criticizing police.
But once again, the cops have lawyered up and are pushing back.
What an outside...
In retaliation for criticizing the police, which is not a crime. It's a matter of fact, your freedom of expression, and everybody else's right to know that if you see a tyrant, you point it out. You have a duty, in fact, to not allow this fucking shit to happen.
Lawyer hired to represent the police department and city slammed the report, calling it an, quote, unfair, inaccurate, and biased report which unfairly smears the entire Worcester police force by claiming there was a pattern or practice by the WPD to engage in excessive use of force and sexual harassment of prostitutes.
So who's right here? The out-of-control cops in Massachusetts or the DOJ? Let's take another look at this epic body cam footage so that you can form your own opinion. Fighting for justice often means I'm on the move, and recently I had a bit of an issue while traveling. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and my phone's data roam. Who are you? Connected and keep fighting the good fight. Safe travels, and now let's get back to this video. Who are you? Who are you? Why don't you go inside? Get another phone. Oh, that's my daughter? Oh, yeah, I do have a lot to do with it. This has nothing to do with you. This has to be one of my all-time favorites that I've ever covered, and this is from Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm pretty sure it's like Worcester. I'm going to go with Worcester, Massachusetts. This was August 25th of 2019. Officers with the Worcester, Massachusetts Police Department arrived outside Cornerstone Baptist Church. And there they were attempting to retrieve a child after receiving a report of a custody dispute involving the granddaughter, I believe, of the church's pastor, Joseph Rizzuti Sr. So the officers arrived to retrieve the child after the father alleged to them that the mother had failed to return the child following a visit. The officers wrote in the report that churchgoers and family members kept interfering and refused orders by police and resisted arrest. But the body cam footage shows exactly what happened. The church's pastor, Joseph Rizzuti Sr., stands outside the church telling his daughter to leave again. A police sergeant walks up to him, and this interaction takes place. This has something to do with you. You done yelling? You done yelling? Are you done yelling? We're all set here. You can go inside. You're not gonna tell me what to do. You go inside. You're about to get arrested for serving the peace. Let's get it. Look at him. Look at him. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing?
You're not going to tell me what to do. Excuse me? See, when it comes to children, again, Deuteronomy 24:7, you stay the fuck out of my business. I'm the biological father of my child, and you have no authority against my objection in any case, particularly one under God.
So yeah, everything was fine. This officer is walking back to his police cruiser. He's about to get in, and then Mr. Rizzuti calls him a tyrant. At that point, he turns around and begins to escalate the situation, confronts Mr. Rizzuti, who calls him a tyrant a second time. You're not gonna tell me what to do. You go inside. You're about to get arrested for serving the peace. And just within seconds, this officer with the Worcester Police Department, or Worcester Police Department, is chasing the pastor into his church.
It's been 2 years since that disaster struck. The city's population is now sparse. In an effort to escape the monsters,
Let's get it. Look at him. Look at him. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? Therein tasing him repeatedly. Women screaming, children screaming, complete and total mayhem.
Oh, you tyrant Nazi. How could you do this, sir?
Tyrant Nazi is correct. That's why I like this video. I've been speaking about Hitler's willing executioners, and that's what we're talking about. Tyrant Nazis just doing their job. No, you're not. No, you're not doing your job. You're violating people left and right, just like Nazis. Again, you don't like my language? Fucking leave.
Oh my god! Oh! You hurt him! Oh, he tased me, my God, my hat! Oh.
You guys need to get back up. Get out of space, back up. And they don't stop with just the pastor. They're attacking like the whole family here inside this church.
You hear that? She's pregnant. They tackled a pregnant woman.
I'm gonna sit down. Are you? What's wrong with you? These guys are tyrants. On the ground now. Let go of me. What's wrong with you? He's a tyrant. I'm resisting you. You're on the ground. You're psycho. I need to get off my wrist. What the hell's wrong? He's a tyrant, Joe. We'll just sue him, that's all. I don't know what I did. You didn't do nothing. They said you punched me in the face. Yeah, he came at me because he didn't like me. Spanish cop right here punched me right in the face. I know. Don't be punching me. What am I arrested for? Yeah, exactly. Come on, what did I get arrested for? Get the supervisor here now. I can't even believe what these guys just did in this church house. Yeah, we need to get him up in there, Jim. Which one do you want to get up first? We have enough guys now. We got enough cops now.
We got enough cops now. We got enough cops now. Really? You got enough cops because one cop is in his feelers. So you have to have all these other cops. I think there's like at least 10 of them, folks. All these other cops that have to support this one cop in his feelers. Pay attention what's said next. She's pregnant and this cop tackled her. They don't give a fuck about women and children, folks. I'm telling you. They don't give one fuck about them.
That's why I say, Keith, at some point, I would love to have, whether we do it offline or whatever, I would love to collaborate with you a little bit on some knowledge that I have. These guys, I believe, are educated and trained by certain top elites and you're absolutely right. They don't give a fuck about us. But we got to really get a hold of what's been going on for a very long time in this country and how these people right here at the top are put in certain key positions. So, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and it goes right back to the Rehabilitation Act and everything.
Yeah, and again, who put the sheriff in position? Is that not a voted in position by the people? The people have to learn how to step up and fill those positions themselves. Quit voting in people that are faithless and are concerned about the taxpayers' money. I don't give one rat's ass about taxpayer money.
I want you guys to 85 years old, beaten up by the Worcester police. This guy right here. You have an ID on you? No, I don't. You got one on you? I'm not going to sit on the ground. I'm a grown man. I'm 55 years old. I'm going to stand flat. You ain't going to believe what this guy did. Not him. Are you okay? Yeah, we're good. This one right here. Yeah. I want to. I don't know. Call me in. I'm Joe. My name's Joe. Reverend Joe Rizzuti. I don't expect you to go in my pocket. You don't care what I said. You're under arrest. We're going to. You get away from me. Okay? You get away from me. No, this guy was assaulted. Right. And you're arrested. Yeah. You get away from me. You've already assaulted me.
And see, that should be general protocol when an officer gets involved with the suspect like that. just like they separate witnesses and victims and things, they should separate the officer as well. But no, see, they're here to support that officer. They're not going to separate him. They're going to support him. And despite the fact that we saw him assault this man, they are going to allow him to go up and get in his face even more. That is the dominance and control of that egotistical, narcissistic view that, hey, I'm just doing my job and I have all my people to support me. It's going to fall. It does not hold.
Assaulted me, tased me, laying in the back of my church, this guy. Imagine that. All because he was asked a simple question. Tased me, you knocked me to the ground, and this guy's pulling my pants down. No one checked me out. You're waiting for him to calm down.
Basically, after this, the Rizzutis hired a badass lawyer. He took it to trial, and they got completely acquitted. And then I believe it was after that I was able to get a hold of this body cam footage. And obviously, I loved it. And 2 years ago, I believe it was November 10th of 2022, I put that video on YouTube. And it was just a matter of a couple of days. Coincidentally, the U.S. Department of Justice began to investigate the Worcester Police Department.
The Department of Justice revealed its findings of a 2-year investigation into Worcester Police.
The Justice Department beginning this investigation.
Based Oracle in the house. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what up?
Not much. Going over some insanity of how people think other people have authority, whether it be on the top end, people that think they can just abuse the people of the community, and the people of the community that believe that they have that authority.
Yeah, that sounds fairly accurate to the modern day programming, right?
Yep, absolutely. That's, the comfort and convenience of being able to sit and watch somebody the boob tube with somebody else's fantastic life because yours is so fucking great.
In November of 2022.
Not just for this, because it opened a can of worms. There were all sorts of types of misconduct happening within the Worcester Police Department, according to the investigation report that ultimately came out of it, that took 2 years. That report was just released. There's all sorts of allegations, everything from this incident to, well, you'll see.
Yeah, well, you'll see, because this is another situation where the Worcester Police Department, of course, investigated themselves and found themselves to be doing nothing wrong. Well, why does the DOJ step in and find all these failures and stuff then? Well, they get kind of ballsy and make a public notice that the DOJ is talking out his ass. Funny shit.
In a bombshell report today, the Department of Justice revealed its findings of a 2-year investigation into Worcester Police. It found the department to be guilty of excessive force, sexual misconduct, and discrimination against women and minorities. The report also detailed
women, minorities, and children. Women, minorities, and children. Remember that last one was the predictive policing. And they were all on that because of the minor. And they were using school records to track him. And they said he was a problem child in the previous county he lived in. So while he's a new resident here, they're going to investigate him constantly. Pretty pathetic.
Don't leave out that each and every one of them are going to have to be rehabilitated.
Oh, I think it's not a matter of rehabilitation. We get them out of the fucking system there.
Well, is that what's funding all of it though? The Rehabilitation Act?
Well, I don't know. Could be.
Officers having sex with prostitutes while on the job.
Allegations include using excessive force and engaging in outrageous sexual contact with women while undercover as part of official investigations.
And see, guys, this is the same kind of guy that sits in Congress, the House and Senate, and passes laws like the 19th Amendment, where you get that right to vote, feeling that you secured this feminine equalism. Guess what? What do you think about your feminist rights while they're out there propagating prostitution? They're not actually fighting these crimes. They're the ones propagating them. You really think this diversity, equity, and inclusion is good for anybody? It only allows for the delusion that they don't have to be good enough to do a fucking thing. Somebody else will do it for them.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of gaslighting within it. Like a lot of things that are propped up to be for quote unquote equality or women or whatever seem to be quite the opposite in reality when you break them down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why, I've spent my entire life looking at people and knowing that they're lying to me because it just doesn't make sense. I've always stayed in that simple mind aspect. I don't like all the complicities. It's bullshit. It's what distracts us from the simplicities of life, the simple observances.
And how many federal, state, I don't even know state, but federal laws are enacted per year? Speaking of complicated things, right? And the idea of, it's due to changing times and technology. And I understand there's some nuance to that, but really, there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to quote unquote evil or bad.
Absolutely. And it comes down to having that first look. What I was talking about, the simple observances. When you see a simple observance and there's something wrong, you better pay attention to it. That's your intuition or instinct saying, hey, stop. Make sure before you take another step. So anyway, we got Phoenix 2040 down in the chat. It says Joe Lastica got me here. Thanks. Much appreciated to Joe Lastica. Go ahead and go over and check him out on YouTube. That's his channel name, Joe Lastica. Check him out, sub. Great guy over there putting out great information. Same thing I am. We met up today and so go check him out.
That's why I say the act of the service is where the wealth should come from.
Absolutely. Actions speak louder than words. And if you're in the proper service, it has proper credence, and you're just the pass-through.
The DOJ saying excessive force by the department includes unjustified uses of tasers, police dogs, and strikes to the head. In this photo, they say an officer tased a 55-year-old man inside of a church in retaliation for criticizing police. They also say sexual misconduct includes one officer who exposed himself and directed a prostitute to touch his penis for 20 seconds before driving her to a different location to be arrested.
That's your feminism, gals. They will make prostitutes out of you, whether you're a prostitute or not.
Yes. The cops are out there fucking hoes, and that's what's happening.
2019, one officer allegedly having sex with a prostitute in a police cruiser behind a supermarket while wearing his uniform.
So they highlight the tasing of Mr. Rizzuti in the DOJ report. And I believe that is what spurred the investigation, but they found that this was only one of many similar incidents. And this is an excerpt from the report, which I will link in full in the first pinned comment below. This is what it said. A WPD officer unreasonably used a taser to drive stun a 55-year-old man in retaliation for criticizing police. 2 officers responded to a custody dispute, and a man on the sidewalk advised people nearby not to talk with police. Though the scene was clear and no threat existed, the officer illegally ordered the man to go back inside a nearby church. After the man called the officer.
So, if the officer
told him he was acting.
If the officer illegally ordered the man to go back inside a nearby church, that is what is known officially as an unlawful order. That is the violation that starts and says you can't go after that man. That would be an unlawful order. He can stand on that space and run his mouth according to the First Amendment all he wants as a matter of redress of his government.
Like a big shot, the officer threatened to arrest him for disturbing the peace. The officer followed the man inside the church and, once inside, chased and tackled him to the ground, where he laid still on his stomach with his head on his forearms. The officer demanded that he relax his arms to be cuffed, and then, without warning and in front of children and congregants, delivered a 5-second drive stun to the man's back. The man was arrested but ultimately acquitted of all charges, including disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and assault and battery on a police officer.
Do you see the list of, did you hear the list of charges there? Is that the epitome of having a hurt feelers? That you would charge a man with so many charges?
Now look at all those tax dollars it's going to take to fund all of that stuff, but everybody forgets about the children and all the lives involved in the funding.
Exactly.
Which, how did they even come up with some of those charges? WPD's internal investigation found no wrongdoing by the officers. This is from the DOJ report.
Found no wrongdoing by the officers. Found no wrongdoing by the officers.
Well, how could they be wrong? They're cops. Investigating themselves. I mean, how could they see them as wrong?
Yeah.
They're investigating their brothers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the DOJ found them guilty right away. They just collected up, took you 2 years to collect up all the evidence to put it out specifically. And I think they outlined it pretty good.
They're probably saying, well, all these dumbasses, you know, we must be right because none of them are saying anything. None of the people in the communities are saying anything.
Yeah, that's why.
So obviously we can get by with it. So
yeah, that's why I keep urging everybody to understand you're the one with the power, and all you have to learn is the knowledge behind your power. What is it that you are talented at and excel in it that you can use for the good in the community in regards to this kind of stuff? Mine particularly seems to be research and comprehension of what's put out in plain writing. And I'm not going to stop speaking on it. I'm going to show you how that United States. I'm going to show you how that finances. I'm going to show you how that United States business means a United States citizen. Are you a business? If you answer that no, then how are you a United States citizen as you've been claiming all your life? Something is inconsistent.
All of that is absolutely documented and verifiably true. However, that did not stop the attorney for these officers or for this police department trying to spin things in the news. This was the statement that he provided to the media.
And an attorney representing the city.
This is my dog Checkers. She's 21 and I owe it.
This is where we see the boldness of the attorney speaking out against the DOJ.
Of Worcester and its police department saying in a statement in part tonight, the DOJ's Civil Rights Division has issued an unfair, inaccurate, and biased report which unfairly smears the entire Worcester police force by claiming there is a pattern or practice by the WPD to engage in excessive use of force and sexual harassment of.
Does that sound familiar? I mean, that's the same kind of language they were using in the previous setup. This is systemic.
Of prostitutes.
But note, he did not say that they did not use excessive force on people and they did not sexually harass prostitutes. He just said that there's not a pattern or practice of it. Well, this video speaks for itself, and as does, I think, the 40 whatever page report from the DOJ, which you can review yourself. I also recalled that there was a lawsuit that was filed by the Rizzutis. So I looked that up on Pacer, and apparently that is still pending. And it doesn't look like it's anywhere near trial. So I'll be curious.
So above and beyond the 105,000, or excuse me, that was a previous video. Above and beyond the taxpayer monies and stuff that they're looking at in these situations, when you go after them yourself in your own private capacity, that's when we're looking at the millions and millions of dollars of lawsuits. And that's what I'm expecting out of this one. And with that, we are done with our review. And what do you guys got to say on this shit? This is pretty pathetic what we're looking at in today's society, and how people seem to just let it happen, let it go, as if though it doesn't affect them. It most certainly affects every last one of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I'll go. I think it's a combination of what I say quite a bit of, the toxicity, right, drugs and programming, right, and it varies person to person, but I think that broadly the standards for society, right, the average man, if we're to look at him, is in really rough shape. I mean, just statistically and in reality, right? So I think that when we look at prioritization as sort of a means that the average man is looking day to day, you know, sort of irregardless of age. You know,
Right.
he wants to make it to the next high, chasing the dragon. And other than sort of the ego and outrage of clickbait, sort of drama content, news, media, right, mainstream, I think he's pretty disinterested in how things actually work, like the truth. And again, just wants to make it to the next day, the next high,
Yeah.
you know, the next fast food or alcohol, whatever it is. And that's just rinse and repeat. So there's really never any deeper thought. And again, I don't mean this towards everyone. I'm just saying that seems to be the norm, the standard
Right.
of society. So to me, when you look at that, it's no surprise that if anything, we're going in a negative direction in many ways.
Yeah, and I mentioned that earlier in regards to the birth rate, you know. And it's the aspect of setting thine house in order. If you can't understand, like I said earlier, that power doesn't come directly from you, it comes through you. So first house is the power which you get your authority. In that authority, you get to have authority over yourself, but no one else. This is why I have a problem with all these people asserting any kind of authority. And the people that say, I think you have an issue, you have an authoritarian issue. And I said, no, I understand authority very well. And I think I assert my own authority within its parameters and don't try to extend it upon others, like everybody else.
Well, how can they have any authority if they don't have any ethics and morality? How can that be any? Yeah, how does that work?
Well, that's why I mentioned the older lady. I don't care what kind of background she's got. The age alone tells me that somewhere she seems to think that she's entitled to behave the way she was behaving towards another full-grown male that could have just walloped her.
Oh, that was the coffee cup one? The older woman that she tried to... Did she try to throw coffee on him? I think he was with the girl, though.
Well, how many times has a man been physically assaulted by a woman and she'll claim to be the victim?
Yeah.
That ain't gonna flow no more.
No.
We gotta stop that shit.
Well, essentially, we're in a society of a bunch of immoral fucking idiots, basically.
Right.
Exactly. They think that they're entitled to do anything they want. That's what our society's become.
Yeah,
I think I would.
People get conformed to that comfort and convenience, thinking that they deserve it, and that they're never going to come to their door. You got it all backwards, folks.
I would add to what Base Oracle was talking about with the whole drugs and the programming. If we rewind back to the 80s, is when those opioids hit the streets. So, and now we look at education today, but now I know I've mentioned you a couple of times, Keith, about that chairman of the Board of Regents of Eastern Kentucky University But the thing why I say that's important, but because before it was Eastern State Normal School, and the curriculum was to teach the students to be teachers. Now, in the 80s, that man was murdered. Who was the powers over the banking control at that time? Because now, after that, obviously, it went in the hands of in different hands from 1983 when they were murdered.
Yeah,
And they were a Combs.
Yeah, and that's just like I pointed out in the first few videos, when we start seeing our presidents make 1,500 fucking commutations of sentences and 39 exonerations and shit. We really have to start wondering what this system really does.
Could it be more obvious to people?
Does it apply across the board? Again, this is why I try to artistically correlate it as connected. Do we end up with a system that does nothing but give us laws that regulate out the use of plastic straws and paper wraps, so we end up using paper straws and plastic wraps without actually addressing the inherent priority issue?
Fuck those paper straws. Fuck those paper straws.
I never use those. It's
the people themselves, based on their thoughts and their actions, are in fact probably artificial intelligence.
It's liberal idiocracy is what it is. That's what it's turned into.
It's insanity.
Sure.
And hedonism, as I pointed out earlier. People just want to have fun now. They think this is the most successful nation on the planet, and that inherently has a impression on people's minds, both to the popularity contest, morals, and the fact that they get to have fun all their life now.
Well,
that money comes from the acts of their service that they provide. They wouldn't be acting that way.
Well. Almost everyone's on something.
Yeah, it's very easily accessible, right? Like things, and I think if it's 5-Speed had mentioned about opioids in the 80s. Hey, I like a little weed too. But, opioids in the 80s.
Smoke it if you got it.
Right, so there's been...
Cocaine in the 80s too. Crack, cocaine.
Sure, yeah, no, I agree. Right, like hard drugs. But I just wanted to make the point that even outside of those hard drugs, that I think we could see just as much in maybe different terms of an impact when it comes to social media as we know it now, the effect that that's had on people, as well as in sort of conjoined with, easily accessible porn, right? Like, obviously, magazines been around since, whenever the 50s, 60s, whatever it is. But I don't think you had what are now coming out. I mean, there's stories of this, many of them, about 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, years later being like, yeah, I was hooked on porn since then, right? They have these phones, right? Obviously, the smartphones that we can do anything with, and they are able to do anything with at age whatever, 6, 7, 8, right? So I think that this all is part of the problem. I'm not pointing my finger at it and saying, oh, this is the reason. I'm just saying I think this kind of all plays into it.
That would pose the question of what these children have seen to be performing those type of acts.
Well, it goes to the element of parents and not giving a shit about children, first and foremost.
And they got to vote.
This is the part about setting thine house in order, because if the parents don't give a shit about their children, what about the father that doesn't give about his child? Does he really give a shit about his mom or his wife? Probably not, if he doesn't give a shit. Again, that's the inherent purpose, is children. So if they don't give a shit, then they neither give a shit about each other either. How can that be anything more implicative of hedonism? That's a dangerous aspect. People just taking a paycheck home so they can provide for their family because they want a happy life.
Yeah. And I think when you mention happy life, just as a kind of bigger concept, I think a lot of, maybe most, men are searching again for that happiness, quote unquote happiness, the feeling, the day to day, the highs, right? Chasing the dragon type of thing, all these different means and methods we just mentioned, rather than that same energy put towards, purpose, right? Like, somebody could argue that their purpose is to watch porn all day and whack off. I suppose if you make the argument and that's what you do, then it's true, but that would seem to be a purpose very devoid of, would you want your kids doing that?
Well, it's a good thing I didn't.
No,
otherwise you guys wouldn't have me.
Right.
Flow state or Paula enslaved. I think that's their purpose.
I can't, no comment. But these kids that we're referencing, right, obviously grow up into adults, and then what do? They are passing it along, right? So, I've heard the argument that we need more babies, just blatantly, like we need more babies in the U.S. and etc. But my pushback on that is to say broadly that we need more kids, more babies in the U.S. is that
more single moms.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is a point that Stephen brings up. Right. So it's like, whether it's single moms or whatever the case, the point is, if most people aren't caring about their kids, and then you have a percentage that are unaliving them, right? However you want to put that. And now we say, no, you can't do that. You have to have them type of deal. Well, the ones who are having their kids generally don't really care about them. So now the ones who would have unalived them, right? The idea of, oh no, we need them to have them. Well, how much of a shit do you think they're going to give about those kids? And I'm not trying to make this a pro-anti, conversation. I'm just talking in the idea of, I don't see that as a solution. Sure, you could argue that's a problem, but the idea of, oh, we just need more without focusing on quality, I think is a broad oversight.
Correct. And that's why I was talking about it being a systemic concept, that they don't really do anything of effect. They regulate everything the same as they do plastic straws. It's the only way we can correct things for ourselves through this system is to learn what the system does and correct ourselves.
Yeah. No, I agree. Right. It starts with you.
Absolutely. And with that, we're at the end of our stream for the night. I want to thank everybody for joining me, both panel and chat. Words on the way out, guys?
I'll end like I usually do, Wizard.
Absolutely.
Be the change you wish to see.
Absolutely.
Remember, if that wealth come from those acts, where would you be?
Yeah.
Peace.
See ya.
Be blessed.
And thanks for having me up, Wizard.
Absolutely.
And Stephen and Wizard, you two have a good night.
You bet. We are blessed.
You
Thanks
too. Have a good night.
Yep.
See
Come
ya.
up again.
Thanks. Will do.
I'll just say, God bless America and American people. The people, not the. I don't mean the other definition. The word magic of the ones that want you to believe you're a corporation, but the actual beings, the actual spirits. That's what I'm talking about. Bless the spirits. And thanks for having me on here. I'll see you later.
Absolutely. Thanks for stopping up. Thanks for being decent too.
No problem.
And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. Bye now.
your mouth.